Hi, it's Anderson McIntyre at Electric Scotland again. I've been reading the news today, and it's kind of occurred to me that this Brexit negotiations are certainly going to be very tough. Of that there is really no doubt. If you look at the comments coming from Germany and the EU and stuff like that very recently, I mean, they're obviously putting on Britain under extreme pressure, that's for sure. And I was just thinking, it's time that we stood up to them. And, everyone can do something about this. I mean, for example, Germany. Because of the 2 world wars they started, I mean, millions of people died as a result of their desire to dominate Europe and even dominate the world. And frankly, there's no way they could have done a World War III, but they have. But instead of conquering us through war, they've just conquered us through economics. I mean, anyone with any common sense knows that Germany really runs the EU. They are by far the dominant country in the EU. And I'm pretty damn sure that they hope to dominate us. If they can't dominate us through war, they can dominate us through economic control. And Britain's getting out from that. And that really hurts Germany. Because, their desire is to dominate. And I think it's time that we sent a message to Germany. And everyone can do it. I mean, for example, why are you buying German products? Stop. Or try and look at what you're buying that's made in Germany, that we import from Germany. Can we import something else? Can we actually buy something that's not German? And if we can send signals of an economic message, then Germany's going to have to think again. And I mean, we don't need politicians to do it. You, me, everyone. We can just simply stop buying German goods and buy alternatives. I mean, if there's no alternative, fair enough, buy German goods. But why buy a Mercedes or BMW? Buy a Jaguar instead. The people with lots of money, they could choose to do that. And as I say, I mean, Volkswagen, it's probably the most crooked company in the world. It's a German company. And they're getting fined billions because of their crookedness in trying to overcome the diesel emissions test. So they're crooks. And the German government is really trying to cover all that up. And frankly, German products are not as good as they once were, that's for sure. You used to think German manufacturing was the top. Now it's not. Again, Volkswagen is an example. How their products are inferior. So this myth about German quality is just that, a myth. And then let's look at Spain. Spain decided that they're going to want a veto over this Brexit. Well, at the end of the day, that's just sheer wrong. So how do we as individuals do something about it? Well, I'll tell you, instead of going to Spain for your holiday, go to Portugal. Or go to another Mediterranean country. Just don't go to Spain. That will send a brilliant message to the Spanish that, hey, you better watch what you're doing with us Brits, And I'll tell you this much, when people attack Britain, as a Scot, I still feel that in my bones. It's just wrong. We should be standing up for this country. And this isn't we all know the SNP are anti-English. We know that. But it makes no sense, because if you talk to the English people, and I don't know how many Scots actually talk to English people, or know English people, but it seems that there's an awful lot of hate in Scotland for the English. In fact, over the years, England's done a lot of good for Scotland. I mean, a lot of you talk about the old Thatcher days and the poll tax and stuff. But at the end of the day, for single people, or elderly people living on their own, that was actually a damn good deal. It was only families that were going to suffer because of it. If I remember talking to one I think it was a Labour councillor in Falkirk, and I told them I'd gotten this letter in from them to say all against the poll tax and pointing out the family's going to be hit. But I said, I don't know why you sent it to me. I'm a single guy, and frankly, the poll tax would have been brilliant because I would have actually saved some money. He said, no, we made a big mistake. We said we sent it to the wrong list. So there were a lot of people that would have benefited. And if you think about it, there's a mother and father that brought up a whole load of kids. Kids have grown up, they've now left home, father dies, mother's a widow, she doesn't really want to leave the family home that she's been in for all these years. And obviously she's not bringing in that much money in her pension and stuff like that, so she's struggling a bit. So that's the kind of person that would have been helped by the poll tax. But oh no, the families where there's 4 grown-up kids in the house, all earning damn good salaries and everything like that, they can afford to pay that extra. But the poor widow living on her own or the old family house can't. So don't go on about the poll tax. There's a lot of benefits to the poll tax. Italy, it wasn't sold in a particularly good way, and Scotland was used as a barometer to see how that might go in the rest of the country. But nevertheless, you've got to remember there were benefits. Some people would have benefited enormously from that. As I say, I think the discussions going on in the news media and about politics these days, I mean, where is the discussion about how Scotland can do better as an independent country? I can't see anything. All I see is Scotland's got a debt of something like, or a deficit of 15 billion. That's a lot of money. So how are we going to replace that? How are we going to fill that gap? Where is the discussion about that? Why are we talking about how Scotland can do better? But all they seem to be talking about at the moment is, well, we'll increase tax on the wealthy. But you've got to remember, you know, at the end of the day, if the wealthy starting to feel they're paying too much tax, they can just move to England. It's not a problem. As I myself lived in England for 6 years. Had a wonderful time. Loved the English. In fact, to be honest, I didn't even see them as being English. I saw them as being fellow Brits. And I could move back up to Scotland to see my folks and all that kind of stuff. So I had a great time in England. So all I'm really saying is, you know, that because we as individuals don't have much of a say in the current politics in Scotland, I mean, that's no reason why we can't, with our own vote, do something about it. We could start to comment in the newspapers and say, hey, where's the discussion about how Scotland can do better? We can start to ask questions of these people. But the problem is, not that many people are reading the newspapers these days, even online. So I don't know where they're getting their news from. I've no idea, to be honest. But it just seems to me that we need more focused discussions. We need to decide, how is Scotland going to improve? Because, you know, let's be honest about it. The health service, our education system, justice system, I mean, we've got problems all over. And again, we're at the end of the day, we're coming out of the EU. I mean, that's just a fact. It's how we get out of the EU that's perhaps more in discussion. But frankly, these bullies in the EU, and I call them bullies, led by Germany, and I haven't been that anti-German pretty well ever, really, but I'm getting very anti-German. I mean, 2 world wars, millions died because of their arrogance, and now they control the EU. No matter what they say, they control the EU. They're the bankers for the EU. So you give it to Germany all the time. They want to control us. Well, I'm not going to be controlled by an arrogant Germany. And we have to send a message to Germany. We have to stop buying their products. That would be one that you and me and everyone could do something about. And then the economic signals will start to go back to Germany. And they'll start to think, Because remember, Germany sell a hell of a lot more products to us than we export to them. So, we send the message, hey, watch it, mate. And as I say, I really call on everyone to start, reading the comments in the online newspapers is getting quite depressing. All we're doing is arguing back and forth about horrible Tories, horrible SNP and all of that. But, we need a discussion about how Scotland's going to go ahead. And we haven't, where have you seen anything recently? I'm trying to do something, but it's obviously not very successful. As I say, I created a fictitious party called the Scottish Innovation Party. And if you go to my Electric Scotland website, you simply scroll down the page and you'll see Scotland's Future. Click on that. Scroll down the page and you'll see the Scottish Innovation Party. Click on that. And in there, what I've been trying to do is trying to discuss the current situation in Scotland. And then I'm posting articles from anywhere in the world about people that think they've come up with a really great idea. And all I'm saying is, if you see any emails or postings of anything that you think, hey, that looks like a good idea, why don't we in Scotland follow that idea? Then send me the URL of the link to that article, and I'll post it up on the website. And I'm willing to have discussions on anything I put up. I'm just seeing things and thinking, now that seems like we could do something with that. Like one of the ones I put up recently was on the Amma canteens in India, where you can get a really, really cheap meal. A lot cheaper than you can buy your own food and everything, because basically with having our own canteens, we can bulk buy. In fact, we can buy all these misshapen vegetables, for example, from the farmers, because once they're peeled and chopped up for putting in stews and stuff like that, you don't know what the original product looked like. So that would be a way to give some money to our farmers, but at the same time giving nutritious meals to the people of Scotland, that instead of going to food banks, they can go to these Scottish canteens and have a really good meal very, very cheaply, much cheaper than you could cook it yourself at home. To me that was an idea, and I don't know why it wouldn't take off, so that's why I put it up. I gave the story of that and how it came about, and I've looked at the food waste that we have, which is considerable. I put articles up about people that are trying to tackle that food waste and some of the ways they're doing it. And I'm saying, if you read it, you might think, hey, wait a minute, we could do that. You might also say that wouldn't work in Scotland. Well, that's fair enough if it wouldn't work in Scotland. But unless people start to put ideas up about what we might do to make Scotland a more prosperous place to live and work, we're not going anywhere. And I say, I haven't seen any discussions in Scotland in the main newspapers or media about anything about Scotland. I know our fishing industry was devastated. I've mentioned this before in lots of other little videos I've done, how we lost 100,000 jobs in Scotland because of the mishandling of our fishing industry by the EU. And that damaged our rural communities quite severely. Well, if we could bring that back, we've got the opportunity to suddenly get an extra 2 billion in annual income from a renewed fishing industry, and that would rebuild up our communities, give us a much better tax base, because there's a lot of unemployed people that could go back into the fishing industry. Suddenly they're actually earning money and they then pay tax, and that's good for the Scottish economy. And that's just one possible idea. There's others that we could be following. For example, there is now new nuclear industries that actually give almost no, I'm trying to remember the word now. One of the problems is all the nuclear waste and how to store it, which is a massive cost. But these new nuclear plants hardly produce any waste at all. In fact, they're greener than green. And then someone mentioned, just today I was reading a story about how if you read the Green Party's manifesto, there's actually no mention of any green products. It's all about Scotland, Scottish, but nothing to do with the environment In fact, I don't think the environment's even mentioned once in the Green Party. So why are we even voting for the Greens these days? Seems ridiculous that we do that. But we need to examine everything. I mean, like, you know, we're getting all this wind power, but how cost effective is wind power? I mean, I don't think we've really investigated that. So, as I say, I was just particularly struck today by how Germany is really attacking Britain. And I say, after 2 world wars and their control of the EU, I've just had enough with Germany. And I think it's time we sent a signal to them. And whether you want Scottish independence or not, frankly, we're still part of Britain. And I think a lot of us, even if we did vote for the SNP, still want to be linked with Britain. So, I mean, let's send them a message. No matter where you are in the UK, send them a message back. And Spain, think again about your holidays. Why do you need to go to Spain? Could you not go to Portugal? It's very similar, after all. Go to Portugal. Send a signal to Spain. This is unacceptable. I mean, they're bullying Gibraltar. And that's, I mean, was it in the last election, something like 98% voted to stay with Britain in the last election. 98%. So that's all of Gibraltar wants to stay with Britain. But Spain wants to force them back into Spain. I mean, that's why we fought in the Falkland Islands. All the Falkland people wanted to stay with Britain. But Argentina wanted to take them over. And the first thing they did when they attacked the Falkland Islands, they immediately cancelled the currency and you had to use Argentinian currency. They changed all the names from English names to Spanish names. I mean, was that a nice way to invite the Falklands to come in? They could have been much kinder to them, but no, they didn't. They were arrogant. And that's arrogance that's causing so many problems. So, you know, whether you've got a vote or not, or whether you're intending to vote or not, you can change things by sending messages. I mean, for example, why should we buy French wine? Why do we buy South African wine, Australian wine? I mean, some of that wine's the best in the world. Yugoslavian wine, for example. I remember Yugoslavian Riesling used to be about the best you could buy anywhere. And I say, even, as I say, I think at the end that we can do more economically if we just look at what we're buying. Where is this product coming from? And I think we need to make sure if we're buying a vegetable, where is that vegetable coming from? And our buyers in our supermarkets should start to think, how can we send a message back? Do we need to buy these Spanish tomatoes? Can we not buy tomatoes from somewhere else? So, talked about right to the supermarket buyers. You know, I notice you're buying this product. Why don't you buy this product from this other country? Ask the questions. I mean, it's just a little bit of effort, but you could do it. And if we all did a little of that, the difference could be huge. And I say, please encourage people to start talking about how to make Scotland a better place and how we can do better with our health service and our justice system and our education system. But so many of us don't bother working at it. We're lazy. And we need to stop being lazy. You know, if you really want a good future for you and your family, you really need to start to get engaged and look at things and ask yourself, how can we do things differently and better? Because there's so much hate in this world. Anyway, there you go. I mean, so that was my essential plea, was to say, look at what you're buying. We can send signals to countries in Europe, and so by starting to stop buying their product and buy other products from out with the EU, we can do that. Everyone can do that. And as they start to challenge people about why you're talking about independence, when clearly most in Scotland don't really want independence. But even if you do want independence, you're going to have to be a self-contained country. And I say, because right now our debt to GDP ratio is the worst of all European Union countries. I mean, just facts alone show you that's unsustainable. It has to change. And if we don't bring in more money into Scotland, we're going to see cuts in our welfare system and health service, education. We're going to see cuts right across the board. Your current check that you're getting from the welfare people is going to be cut because we simply can't afford to give you that money anymore. So we have to find ways of bringing more money into Scotland. And so that's what we should be focused on. Because the more we bring in, then the more we can afford to spend on the health service, the more we can afford to spend on education. But if we don't bring any more money in, we don't have the money to do it. We have to borrow more. Borrowing more costs us a lot. So, you know, think about Scotland, for Pete's sake. I mean, let's see what we can come up with as ideas. I mean, the National Health Service, do you really need that extra painkiller? Could you not stop taking these painkillers for a while, or only take them every other day rather than every day? I mean, even that, with all the people that take painkillers, would make a huge difference to our health service, the cost there. Do you really, you've got a cold. I mean, you know you can sort a cold out yourself. Do you really need to go and see the doctor for a cold? I mean, suck it up, you know, it will get better in a week. So, I mean, think of ways we can help the country, because by reducing costs, that means that we can do much better. So, please think about this. Think about how you individually can make a change. Thanks for listening. Bye.